Hello to you all, and thank you so much for jumping onto our monthly webinar. We aim to get knowledge out there and to share our experience in cleanroom technology, environmental monitoring with you all, so we're always delighted to have you join us here. Today, we're going to be talking about 21 CR411 and data integrity as it applies to environmental monitoring systems and particle count data. I'm Jason Kelly, VP of Services, and I've been working in the cleanroom technology environmental monitoring space for about 27 years and have designed and implemented many hundreds of monitoring systems around the world. Today, we're going to go over 21 CR4 Part 11 and how it applies to data integrity, and especially with particle count data and environmental monitoring systems. So we've been providing particle counters and facility monitoring systems since 1982. So what are the goals of these air monitoring instruments and systems? They are basically data generating systems. The data is considered critical data as it's used to validate the environment where the products are manufactured and processed. So building better customer relationships starts with healthy data. So let's look at how data is generated and how to mitigate against data integrity issues by using today's technology. We shall get into that soon, but let's first look at the FDA and what their expectations are on data integrity. So 21 CR4 Part 11 was first published in 1996. The FDA addressed the need for innovation in industry's working methods so new products could be brought to the market faster with the help of these digital tools. 21 CR4 Part 11 seeks the highest level of authentication and control around the approval processes. The next slide highlights some recent FDA warning letters. Let's have a look. Here we see some recent warning letters citing data integrity issues. It was observed that the data stored on the computer can be deleted, removed, transferred, or renamed without control. So here the FDA is telling the offender that your data has no real control. It can be deleted, removed, or transferred, or even renamed. There is no control. In the second citation, there is no audit trail or log of data changes that are made to the information in the database. Data cannot be verified against source records since such records are not maintained. So really what they're saying here is that they can't really trust the data. Has this data been generated at the appropriate location? Does it have a timestamp? There's no verification, so they cannot relate the data to its original content. The next citation, the system has no way in verifying data integrity, and operators have performed operations on data collection without any validated SOPs or current training records. Again, the citation, this is a really bad one. Basically, we have operators working in a cleanroom environment in an aseptic process where without any real training or training records and no real validated SOPs. So the FDA doesn't really take kindly to these type of issues. So here, let's look at some of the data integrity issues the FDA has cited over the years. Obviously, missing data, shared login information, altered files, data automatically discarded, fabricating data, copying existing data as new, and authentic data. These are just some of the issues they brought out. Quite important ones, I'd say. What is data integrity? So what is all this data integrity about? Well, the FDA released more certification and clarification with ALCOA, which explains or defines what the FDA is seeking according to the FDA. Data integrity refers to the completeness, consistency, and accuracy of the data. Complete, consistent, and accurate data should be attributable, legible, and contemporaneously recorded, original or true copy, and accurate. It's called ALCOA. If we look here, we see data integrity and compliance with CGMP guidelines for industry. This came out from the FDA in December 2019. The extent to which data are complete, consistent, and accurate through the data lifecycle. Even in the United Kingdom, the equivalent, the MHRA of the FDA, they cite data integrity as the data being complete, consistent, and accurate throughout the data lifecycle. So this is Alcoa, we just mentioned it, and there are 5 parts to Alcoa, looking at attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. So our portable particle counters and monitoring systems meet Alcoa. We will go into more details during this presentation on how. For now, let's look at the meaning of Alcoa. A stands for attributable. The data must be linked to its source, making it attributable to the person or system that observed and recorded the data. The source of the data itself must be traceable, and any changes to the data must be signed and dated by the person who made them. It's important to remember that attribution doesn't apply only to the collection of original data, but also to any changes made to it during its life cycle, including any analytics or reporting. L stands for legible. This goes beyond whether someone's handwriting is readable or not. It means that all collected data must be clear, permanent record, and can be read and interpreted at any time over the retention period. If data cannot be correctly interpreted, there are additional risks that come to the fore when it's reviewed for quality analysis and audit purposes. Contemporaneous. Backdating data can lead to errors, and information captured only at the end of the day can be forgotten before it's captured. So in this instance, contemporaneous means that the data must be recorded at the time it was generated. If this isn't possible, it must be recorded as close to the observed event as possible. The data integrity requirements request timestamping without manual operation, and recording devices and computer time clocks must be synchronized across the system. Sounds a bit like a real-time monitoring system to me. O stands for original. Source data or raw data is what's meant by original data. It's the first data and therefore considered the most accurate and reliable. It doesn't matter if the data has resulted in a pass or fail. It should be preserved in its original unaltered state or recorded as true certified copy for reference purposes. Auditors must be able to trace metadata, the calculations, the reports, and analysis results from the raw data directly to the source data. Finally, we have A, which means accurate. All data records must correctly reflect the action or observation made, and data must be checked where necessary. Any modifications must be explained, if not immediately self-evident. So this is Alcoa from the FDA, and it's a nice, neat package which helps understand and enable better data integrity. So there's also 4 additional data integrity requirements that apply to the basic FDA Alcoa principles. The plus sign indicates the acronym stands for more than the 5 principles covered above. The additional data integrity requirements are complete. So all relevant raw data and metadata, including retests and reanalysis, must be collected. Consistent. Analysis elements should be date time-stamped. This must be in the expected sequence and include all deviations during the process, as well as any changes made to the data. So here we're following the life cycle of the data, and everything must be time-stamped and in sequence, so they can see how you get from the start to the finish point. Enduring. All data records must be stored as controlled documents or electronic media for the long time period of retention. Some companies are 5, 10 years for data retention. And now with the availability of cheap storage, you can store data, hundreds of years as disk space has become very, very cheap. And finally, available. The data must also be readable and available to personnel responsible for review, audit, or inspection during the retention period. So you must be able to get to the data very quickly and be able to review it pretty quickly. Think of it in terms of when an FDA auditor would come on site and ask for some data. It's important to be able to get that data pretty quickly. So now we have a better grasp on data integrity, Alcoa and 21 CR Part 11. Let's see how technological monitoring systems can help you meet these requirements, and let's follow the data from its birth to its resting place. So where do we start? Well, we start at the sensor level, as the sensor is the source of the data. So let's see how sensor technology can actually secure data integrity. Let's start with the particle counters that provide critical data for clean room environmental cleanliness. There are two types for the monitoring of airborne contamination: remotes and portables. A particle counter samples air and counts the number of particles that pass through the sensor. The sensor is also capable of sizing the particles, which is all based from light scattering technology. And for any newbies here, if you want to understand more about how particle counters work, please log on to our Knowledge Center from our website, and you'll find a multitudes of information on how particle counters work in previous webinars and technical papers. So it's important to understand how this technology works in terms of the accuracy and overall data integrity. So our particle counters have technological advances with every data record verified through 7 sensor diagnostics. So the data is validated as good data from the source. The technology secures the data against sensor failures or if the sample itself is skewed. Let's compare the self-diagnostics to other brands on the market. As you can see, there are 8 diagnostic parameters if we include calibration status. By observing laser supply, laser power, photodetector power supply, and photodetector health, this enhanced sensor diagnostics enables better data integrity. How? I hear some wonder in their minds. How is that possible? Well, let me show you how this is achieved in a real-life scenario. I'm going to watch a quick video where I played the starring role. You may not notice me. But anyway, let's have a look at this video, and we'll talk about it after it's played through. So, as we have seen, this is one example of ensuring the integrity of the source data. All bad data will be marked as such and discarded from the batch report. The particle counter will signal if the contamination is severe enough to warrant a service. So did you know that prior to this enhanced self-diagnostics, the #1 cause of failed calibrations was sensor contamination? How ironic that cleaning solution was the root cause. The sensor did not have the ability to detect that the sensor had been contaminated and that the contamination is enough to skew the count data and resize the particles incorrectly, then you're in for a lot of trouble. So there you have it. The source data is protected and validated as authentic. Now, how about getting that data to its final destination? Well, we did cover this in detail in a previous webinar where we highlighted how we can digitally transfer that data to, say, a network printer or a secure file location on a network. All this without the need to even print the data from the particle counter. Speaking about that, did you know that thermal paper is not very environmentally friendly? The ink used is toxic, and the thermal paper cannot be recycled. So if you wish to find out more about going digital, then again, jump on our Knowledge Center and type in paperless data, and you'll see some webinars and technical papers pop up that will be good for you to review. So going digital also ensures better data integrity because you're cutting out human error, and you're also authenticating the data from the source to its final destination. And there's a lot of issues around transcribing data from paper to make that paper printout into a digital copy. Again, if you jump on that previous webinar about going paperless, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. And bottom line is, digital is the way to go for data integrity. And we will, if anybody has any questions on that, please send me a direct email and I'll point you in the right direction, or we can discuss about the different options available. So we can clearly see that the additional sources of data validation do in fact help secure the data's integrity. Another huge advantage is that with an early warning detection built in, with what we have just seen in that video, it can assist in ensuring calibrations are intact. What I mean by that is, based on observations from our service departments around the world, the number one failed calibrations root cause is sensor contamination, and mainly from cleaning solutions. Now imagine if that particle counter did not have this level of sensor integrity, then that unit could have gone into annual calibration and could have failed the calibration. The impact on the end user is that it will be unclear when the sensor was contaminated. Therefore, how many product batches could potentially be at risk? There's a lot of paperwork and a lot of product questionable, as the data is critical for batch release, and maintaining calibrations between calibrations is really important. If you look at what the FDA has to say, validation of systems to ensure accuracy, reliability, consistent intended performance, and the ability to discern invalid or altered records. I'd say that the video you just witnessed is really an important one to show the technology that we're using does in fact maintain data integrity. We want to have the data built into the data source. Let's take a look at 21 CFR Part 11 in a little more detail. 21 CFR Part 11 outlines the federal requirements that help to ensure that electronic records are trustworthy, reliable, and generally equivalent to paper records and handwritten signatures executed on paper. 21 CFR Part 11 has 10 chapters with 3 subsections. These subsections are general provisions, electronic records, and electronic signatures. 21 CFR Part 11 is divided into these 3 subparts. The general provision sections discusses the scope of the regulations, when and how it should be implemented, and defines some of the key terms used in the regulations. The electronic records section sets forth the requirements for administration of closed and open electronic record keeping systems, then discusses signature manifestations and requirements for establishing a link between signatures and records. Finally, the electronic signature section is split into 3 parts: general requirements for electronic signatures, electronic signature components, and controls for identifications, including codes and passwords. In the first section of 21 CFR Part 11, under general provisions, in section 11.1, its goal is to establish what this regulation does and when it should be applied. The regulations in 21 CFR Part 11 set forth the criteria under which the FDA considers electronic records and signatures to be trustworthy, reliable, and generally equivalent to paper-based records. In Part 11.2 implementation, this section explicitly states that companies can use paperless record-keeping systems if they are in compliance with this regulation. In Part 11.3, the FDA provides definitions for some of the terminology that will be used later in Part 11. One example would be the difference in definitions between closed systems and open systems. If we look at a portable particle counter, I'd consider that a closed system. Whereas we look at a real-time monitoring system, that would be considered an open system, just for your information. If we look at electronic records, this is subpart B, Section 1110 sets forth 11 separate and distinct security management requirements for companies that wish to keep electronic records using a closed software system. Some of the requirements include limiting system access to authorized individuals, authority and device checks to verify the integrity of data and signatures, the establishment of written accountability policies for maintaining system security, and the appropriate validation of record-keeping systems to ensure consistency in its intended performance. The FDA also establishes the audit trail requirements in this section. Section 11.3, controls for open systems, typically means that more people have access to the record-keeping system. So the security requirements should be slightly more comprehensive to help ensure that the records kept are accurate and readable and reliable. This section recommends that open systems are subject to the same 11 security requirements as closed systems, along with any additional appropriate measures such as document encryption and the use of digital signature standards to ensure the integrity and confidentiality of the records. Section 11.5, signature manifestations. This section deals with how signatures should appear on electronic records. The FDA expects to see the printed name of the signer, the date and time that the signature was executed, and the meaning of the signature, whether it's approval, review, or if it's an authorship, or if it's analysis. And these are subjected to the same controls as the records themselves and included on any human readable form of the electronic record. So section 11.7, signature record linking, electronic signatures and handwritten signatures executed to electronic records shall be linked to their respective electronic records to ensure that the signatures cannot be excised, copied, or otherwise transferred to falsify an electronic record by ordinary means. So there's a lot of tight controls about your username, your password, which is your electronic signature. The system should not allow any user with inadequate permissions to affect a signature by copying a signature from one document and attaching it to another. Look at subpart C, electronic signatures. This section sets forth some of the requirements for personnel accountability in electronic signatures that are central to this regulation. It requires organizations to verify the identity of any individual who is assigned an electronic signature on the system. You need to keep records of who your personnel are and what level of access they have to the system. In section 11.2, electronic signature components and controls, the FDA wants electronic signatures to use at least two identifying components, such as including an identification code and a password. Electronic signatures should be assigned to individual persons, not to groups or departments, such that each electronic signature can only be executed by a single person to whom it was assigned and whose identity was verified in compliance with this part. The FDA really wants to make sure that approval and review signatures cannot be disputed once they are entered into the system. Section 11.3, controls for identification codes, passwords. 21 CFR Part 11 requires special security measures for the controls of passwords. No two individuals should use the same identification password to access the system. And passwords should be changed periodically to protect against password aging. Companies must establish transaction safeguards that prevent unauthorized use of passwords. Loss management procedures should be established to ensure that compromised security tokens, cards, or other devices are deauthorized to prevent security breaches. So here we have a summary of 21 CFR Part 11. So in the summary, we talk about access to electronic records are limited to authorized individuals. Account sharing between individuals, groups, or departments is not permitted. Adequate security protocols are followed to ensure the integrity of passwords and login credentials for all users. Electronic signatures cannot be transferred or copied between documents. Electronic signatures are certified to be the same as handwritten signatures, and that the certification is also mailed to the FDA. Records are tracked through document controls and an audit trail that monitors changes and discerns invalid or altered records. As our particle counters are becoming more digitalized, in order to provide superior data integrity, we therefore have to verify that each product has been designed and it operates correctly, and the data as well as the access to that data is validated. Our ApexZ was the world's first particle counter to come to the market with a full audit trail built into the system. A traceability matrix illustrates how the ApexZ was tested against the requirements of 21 CFR Part 11 internally, and there are also field verification documents like IQ and OQ documents available. And I see more and more companies now ordering these validation packages, and it is important as vendors that we are able to fully verify the operation of the system to be compliant with 21 CFR Part 11. Now, when I say fully compliant, there are also requirements of the end user, and we'll get into them as well in a little bit more detail later. Validation documentation are created internally on all of our products, and each part of the instrument interface is tested. User security features are tested, username, passwords, timeouts, and all connectivity is tested. Each test protocol takes each test step from the first to the last. In fact, you could use our validation documents even for training. That is one of the reasons I always encourage your customers to fully engage in the on-site validation process, as it not only validates the instrument, but the end user will get some good training too. I need to stress that there are some 21 CFR 11 requirements that the end user must complete on their end, which are outside of the vendor's capabilities and must be part of the end user's validation, which should be addressed through their quality system and use of SOPs as well. Here we have an example of the 21 CFR Part 11 internal validation. Subsection B, electronic records, and C, electronic signatures are fully tested where appropriate. Each section consists of a test procedure with specified results and actual result of test. On the left, you'll see the 21 CFR Part 11 requirements. In this example, Part B of Subpart B, the ApexZ is tested to verify that it can generate human and readable forms of records. The fact that the ApexZ has a user login, which is an electronic signature, and a full system audit trail enables the data to be traceable to the electronic signature. The audit trail is a timestamp of events captured. These events capture the user activity for full transparency. So everything the user does is captured in the audit trail. And an audit trail can be printed off to be attached to the batch records as well as the data. The ApexZ also has a download and configuration management software package called LMS Exchange, and it too needs to be verified and validated. LMS Exchange is used as an external configuration tool and secure database for all data generated. PDF reports can be generated, not only from the particle counter, but also from this package as well. And the user cannot modify or delete the data in the software. In the last couple of slides, you have seen how 21 CFR Part 11 verification is handled. As mentioned, there are some 21 CFR Part 11 requirements that are effectively outside of the vendor's scope, and the end user needs to internally address these. Let's take a look at some of these requirements. This is 21 CFR Part 11, Subpart B. We see Section I requires the end users to verify that the persons who develop, maintain, or use electronic records signatures need to have the education, training, and experience. So you need to keep a record of all of your operators and what level of training and experience they have, including their resume, any degrees they may have, etc. Section J requires established written policies to hold individuals accountable and responsible for actions initiated under their electronic signatures to deter record and signature falsification. This is an important part and a big legal issue, especially if you're a verified person and you're releasing batches to the market. Section K requires documented controls for access to the system and operation and maintenance. These controls can be developed from user manuals and internal policies and procedures outlined. And these documents need to follow change control procedures within the audit trail with timestamps on the development of system documents. The above are critical aspects of 21 CFR Part 11 for end users, and they must be implemented. If you look at electronic signatures, Section B requires the organization to verify the identity of the individual within the company who will be using an electronic signature. In Section C, it requires an organization to certify that any electronic signature used after the 20th of August 1997 are legally binding. So here the FDA is tying down your electronic signature, and it's a legally binded signature. And people can go to prison for falsifying data. It's happened before. And we need to lock this down completely as much as we can. And it's the responsibility of the end user to make sure these requirements are met. So, you know, these are a couple of requirements. There are more. And, you know, I wanted to illustrate that in order for any company to be fully compliant to 21 CFR Part 11, they must adhere to the full requirements themselves. That's why I never say that we supply a fully 21 CFR Part 11 compliant instrument or system, because there are these obligations of the end user to fulfill. And sometimes these end users do not understand that, but it's really important that you do. Okay, it's time to recap. You know, we discussed the importance of data integrity and how that data integrity is the foundation to the FDA ALCOA concept and 21 CFR Part 11. We then touched on the data source and how important the instrument or equipment developing the data is to the overall data governance, which ultimately leads to product releases. In one example, we looked at the particle sensor, the self-diagnostics. We see how advanced sensor technology can in fact assist in data integrity with that video we saw of the cleaning solution sprayed near the particle counter, and how that cleaning solution can impact on data integrity and in calibration results. After that, we went through the 3 subsections of 21 CFR Part 11. And then we looked at how a particle counter supplier should validate their products and supporting software. And finally, we looked at the end user's responsibilities, which are sometimes overlooked, as a lot of end users expect that the instrument is fully 21 CFR Part 11 compliant upon receipt, and do not understand that they are required to also adhere to 21 CFR Part 11. Well, I think we got through quite a bit, and there's so much to think about with 21 CFR Part 11. So if you have any questions, please type them in, and we'll go into our Q&A session and look at some interesting questions before we close out today's webinar. Okay, let's look at some common questions where we will cover some of these topics. Question number 1. Which records does 21 CFR 11 apply to? So 21 CFR Part 11 applies to any records that are required by the FDA that are being maintained electronically instead of paper. Which records the FDA requires is outlined in the predicate rules that we outlined in the 3 subparts under general provisions, electronic records, and electronic signatures. It's all in the document, folks. And I do recommend that you get a copy and review it if you haven't got a copy of the current 21 CFR Part 11. It's on the FAA website. Also, 21 CFR 11, sorry, I think I just skipped the slide. 21 CFR 11 applies to any records that are submitted with batches and backing up the batches as well. Question number 2. What is an electronic signature under 21 CFR Part 11? Okay, Part 11 sets standards for using electronic signatures. Signatures must include a printed name, the date and time, and the reason for the signature, if it's a review, approval, responsibility, or the authorship, etc. Signatures need to have a unique login and a unique password attached. That means you should enter your password every time you sign a document and never sign using someone else's email address login. Every research team is responsible for making sure only authorized users can access the system. Each user must have a unique login, which is typically an email address, and a password that is updated regularly. Your software system should also record any unauthorized attempts to log into the system. Your vendor can help you set up all of this, and we do. With our real-time monitoring systems, for example, we tie into LDAP and LD, and we basically will use the same electronic signature that you would use in your company, say for logging into your computer, and all that ties in neatly under Active Directory, and it's a nice closed loop, and it also prevents having to put in your signatures over and over again, and everything is tied in, and you've got an audit trail as well. So it's a really nice system and tidies it all up pretty easily. So question number 3, who is responsible for 21 CFR Part 11 compliance? So although electronic instruments and system suppliers are responsible for creating the products that fall within compliance guidelines, if they wish to be used by life science companies, it is ultimately up to you to make sure that you are being compliant with 21 CFR Part 11 and holding your team to a higher standard when it comes to data security and protecting your electronic records. You should do your part to learn about this regulatory standard and what it entails, as well as what elements are going to be the most important to your organization specifically. That way you can focus your efforts and then focus on training people on the specific areas they need to know so you aren't wasting time or resources. Question 4, what should I be training my employees on with 21 CFR Part 11? Well, obviously understanding the requirements, password hygiene, avoid any phishing attempts. There's a lot of that going on out there, folks. A lot of hackers. Definitely have a two-factor authentication, data integrity and security, and be vigilant and never leave your PC unattended. And also make sure that the systems you're using have timeouts. So if you go away from your particle counter or your real-time monitoring system, it will time out after X amounts of minutes as well. So question number 5, what would you recommend to check if my system is 21 CFR 11 compliant? So to comply with those rules and regulations, you must be able to show incontrovertible proof that you are and have been following the mandates. There's good news. The allowance of digital signatures and electronic records make things at least somewhat easier. Of course, as with most federal regulation, the devil is in the details. If you look at this validation, here's some things to check. Obviously, has the system been validated? Can you determine invalid records in the system? Remember the bad data. Can you easily retrieve records for the duration of their retention? Is access to the system limited to only specific individuals? Is there a way to ensure that only authorized users can access the system, sign records, or make other changes? Does the system only allow data inputs from authorized devices? Is there documented training for system users? Do you have a written policy dealing with user accountability and responsibility? Is there a control solution for accessing system resources? And if you look at audit trails, here are some of the things to look out for. Does the system automatically generate a secure timestamped audit trail? Does that trail include the date and time of entries, as well as actions users take, including deleting or modifying data? Do changed records still include previous information in a legible format? Is the audit trail fully available and accessible for the duration of the record's storage time? Can the audit trail be reviewed easily? Can it be sent to the FDA as a copy? Does each audit trail include important information such as user ID, event sequence, original and new value data, change logs, revision, and change controls? Does each signed electronic record include the signer's name, date, and time of the signing, and the reason for the signing? Well, I think it's quite a lot to think about. And it's been, 21 CFR Part 11 has been a very integral part of our lives over the last, 30 odd years. And it's all about the data, folks, and data integrity. And if you apply these principles to your organization and you work with vendors that really understand about data integrity, about 21 CR4 Part 11, then your journey will become a lot smoother. Okay, I'd say that's a wrap. But finally, before we wrap up this webinar, let's look at next month's webinar, which will be hosted by Hasim Solmaz, and will be, as usual, a great topic and a very informative webinar. So if you want to get some awesome knowledge on clean room monitoring, I highly recommend you sign up for this webinar next month. And those of you who know Hashim, I'd call him an expert. He's a great presenter, has a lot of valuable information, and has been in the industry for a long time, and has a lot of credentials, as you see. And I love Hashim's webinars, and I do recommend you jump on. So stay safe, everyone, and I'll be back again soon with more topics to cover. Also, if you want a particular topic covered, please drop me a line or write me a text here. Send me a direct email. So until next time, Shalom Makarja. Take it easy, everyone.